All right, everyone, welcome. So, today, me and Cam are going to be discussing our thoughts on some of the biggest topics in college sports today. Cam, welcome back, man.
It's good to be back. It's been a while since we've recorded a podcasting episode, and I just graduated, so I'm glad to finally be done with all that, and I'm glad I'm here again. So thanks for having me.
Most definitely, man, most definitely. Okay, so, Cam, how we're going to start this off is the first topic is going to be NIL. I want you to tell me your thoughts on it, and then I'm going to say my thoughts.
All right, overall, I think NIL it's kind of like two sides of the same coin, right? In terms of there's one side where I think it benefits the athletes that either don't have time to to get a job or really
Right.
don't have the funds to support them on their own. But at the same time, I feel like that NIL, particularly with college football, has been blown out of proportion with, I mean, Darian Mensah with Miami. I believe his contract was close to 10 million, I believe. And we've gone to the point where not only with people like Mensa, but NIL has pretty much turned collegiate athletics into free agents, like lesser of the NFL free agency. Like it's where they're treating kids like professional athletes now, even though college kids aren't as mature as professional athletes. Like they don't have the experience, they don't have like the ground to stand on. But like you give an 18 or a 19-year-old like so much money, they don't know what to do with it and they don't have a plan with it. Sometimes they're responsible with it, sometimes they're not. But as a whole, I feel like NIL is at first I really liked it,
Okay.
but as time has gone on, I feel like it's been blown out of proportion, particularly with college football and college basketball has started to disproportionate, just like put a disproportionate label on NIL with the transfer portal and the recruiting out of high school too. But
Yeah.
that's my take on it. I think in the right hands, it can be beneficial, but as a whole, especially with bigger schools like Miami, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, I feel like they can take it way out of hand, and it would be just a bit much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that because another thing people can realize is that I want to start with the Juco side of it. So when you go out of Juco, go into like a Division 1 school, a lot of those guys need that money. It helps them in a way. Sometimes there's some guys that come from money and they get even more money. So it's just really about what situation you are in. Now, in my opinion on NIL, in a way, I like it for the right reasons. Like there's
Yeah.
some guys where like they'll have like a sponsorship with like fishing company like Bass Pro Shop, they'll get an NIL deal with them. Or there will be actual like companies try to help these athletes. And but that's the part of NIL that I like. I don't like the fact where like you could just pay players now. I don't like that at all. But I like the part of NIL most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and think about it. Some companies that some of these players partner with are they're pretty big. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
you got the brands like Nike, Adidas, Champion, Reebok, but then you've got like bigger brands like Rolex
Exactly.
and some car brands like Ford, Honda. But then you're like bringing Lamborghinis, Bugattis,
Right.
Maseratis, like you name it. It's like sometimes I mean it's cool, but at the same time it's being blown way out of proportion.
Okay, the next topic that we're going to discuss today, Cam, is going to be the class of 2022, this year's seniors not being granted their extra year eligibility while they had to go against guys way older than them. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the thing about that, and I'm gonna kind of intertwine other classes in this because during 2020, like that class was granted an automatic year because of COVID.
Right.
Um, but I feel like that, when you're a senior and you go up against a guy who's also a senior, but he's 4 or 5 years older than you, like
Yeah.
like imagine because I'm 24. Imagine
Right.
that like a 24-year-old college kid maybe kids younger like 20 or 21 have to go up against someone who's like 27 or 28, like someone not only older than them but that has more experience than them. It's kind of unfair. And I feel like that not granting the 2022 seniors extra eligibility when there were some people from the class of 2019 and I think
Yeah,
even before that who are either still in college now or just finished up their last season now is pretty unfair. I mean, I graduated high school in the class of 2021, so if I were to be
yeah.
recruited somewhere, my time in college would be done in terms of athletics. But I don't think that it's fair that there are certain classes that have had better treatment than like the younger classes, like the class of 2022 or the class of 2023. I feel like that they're kind of being like shoved aside or like shoved under the rug. So I don't think it's fair that they're not getting an extra year, even though I think that they should.
I agree on that. And what I've talked about before is, especially, we'll take this from the Juco perspective. So you go play Juco for 2 years, you transfer to a Division 1 program. It's really hard to start right out the gate at a Division 1 program coming from junior college.
Yeah.
So that player, technically, they'd have 1 year right after that of actually starting and then having to go to the professional level just off of one season of starting film. That's really hard to do, in my opinion. So I feel like the NCAA has done a lot of guys dirty on not giving them their extra year eligibility. I've known multiple people that were not granted that extra year eligibility. I'm interested to see what will eventually end up happening going into our next discussion. What's your thoughts on the NCAA potentially giving everyone 5 years now?
Yeah, that's another thing that I don't really have too much to say on because it's something that's relatively new.
Yeah,
But going back to our previous statement, I mean, guys that weren't granted that extra year. I know guys that were
yeah,
granted that extra year. I mean, and we all know about what's been transpiring since January. I mean, the whole Trinidad
right.
Chambliss thing
Yep,
after he lost to Miami in the Fiesta Bowl and he was trying to plead his case to get an extra year. At first he was denied, but then he took it to the courts and now he's getting an extra year of eligibility.
yeah,
I feel like sometimes like small like lesser known players try to do the same thing in terms of like trying to vouch for themselves, getting that extra year. But it doesn't always work out for them because they're not a starter or they don't go to a
right,
bigger school. But my take on it is like you've got your 4 years, or you've got your redshirt year.
right.
So think about it. If a guy's in college for 4 years and he takes a redshirt year and then he's still granted an extra year, some players could be in college for up to 6 years. And in my opinion, I think that's a bit much. I mean, there's a bunch of fifth year seniors, but I feel like that having that redshirt year is already
Yeah,
giving the player enough, giving them an extra year to play. I'm not in agreement with it because you can't stay in college forever. So.
okay. Yeah. Okay, I can see where you're coming from in that. And like, you have to take into consideration, like you said, like red shirts, all that. Some guys have been given that opportunity to get more years due to the JUCO ruling, due to their medical history, due to multiple different things. So it could get really interesting heading forward. What we're going to talk about next, the biggest topic in all of college sports, the transfer portal. What's your thoughts?
I like the transfer portal. It's still there's a lot of stuff about the transfer portal that still needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
Especially that this transfer portal really came to fruition around 2018 or 2019. That's really when its impact was really starting to to affect schools. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
there was a couple of schools early on. I remember during COVID, De'Aaron King from Houston transferred
Yep.
to Miami. There was also, I'm trying to think, Jordan Travis from Florida State. He originally didn't even go to Florida State. He transferred in from Louisville. I believe that was in 2018 or 2019. But I think about it, like those players wouldn't have had those opportunities without the portal. And I feel like the transfer portal is good in giving other players better opportunities at schools that would actually be willing to give them a chance. So, say for example that you're a three-star recruit who goes to Texas State and you you play well, but you want to show off your talent at a bigger level, like the ACC or the Big Ten.
Hmm.
and you transfer to Michigan. You go from Texas State to Michigan, then you go from just being a generic three-star to, one of the top three-star transfers. But to the transfer portal, you might be a four-star, or you might be a five-star, because you've got your composite ranking on 24/7, and then if you enter the transfer portal, you've got your transfer ranking. So I like that. I also like the fact that if there are players at a bigger school who don't get an opportunity that want to transfer to a smaller school just so they can play, they're able to do that. So I like the transfer portal in terms of giving players either opportunities to play a level down to just get playing time or play a level up so they can show off their skills on a more national level. I don't like the transfer portal for a couple of reasons, but the biggest reason is that I don't think the transfer portal, and correct me if I'm wrong with this, because I've been more so paying attention to hockey than college athletics lately, but I believe that the transfer portal doesn't have a limit on how many times you can transfer.
Currently, yes.
Yeah, so that's something that bothers me because I mean TJ Finley's a prime example. He transferred to like five or six different schools, and I think that's just overkill. I mean, you transfer once, you transfer twice. I think two times should be the limit, personally.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to go into on that is what you talked about, like guys, they'll go to a smaller school and then they'll go to a bigger school. And I agree on that because there's some guys that can go to, like, let's say the AAC, for example, and then go to the ACC, you
Mhm.
know? So, or like the Big 12 or the SEC. So you have a guy that goes down there, develops, didn't have a lot of offers out of Juco. Then he goes to a Power 5 school, goes and dominates. That just shows you what the transfer portal is about. If that didn't happen, if the transfer portal didn't happen, that guy potentially could not have went to that school. So there's a lot of different stuff with that. Another thing I want to talk about is so for Division 2, they have a thing where you can play 4 years and then you have a grad transfer to Division 1 for 1 year. What's your thoughts on that?
I actually kind of like that
Yeah, I
because
agree too.
it's kind of like it's kind of like giving them a fifth year,
Yep.
but not necessarily giving them a red shirt. I mean, if
Right.
you complete your 4 years at a smaller school like Ferris State or Valdosta State or like a smaller D2 school, um, and you're able to transfer into a D1 school at any level, I actually like that because that kind of ties into, a player going to a smaller school like Texas State or like Arkansas Pine Bluff or like like a
Right.
smaller group of five school or like a Division 1 FCS school
Yes.
that would want to showcase their talents on a more national level. I mean, if you go from Valdosta State to like a smaller school like USF, or if you want to take it to a bigger school like Arkansas or LSU or Ohio State, I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay, then the last one that I have for you today, Cam, is going to be what is your thoughts on players having agents and advisors?
Um, I feel like it's good, but the thinking of the concept of collegiate kids still having agents when you usually associate sports agents with professional athletes, it's a little not jarring. I just think it's a little peculiar because, you've still got these college kids who are getting these inordinate amount of money. This
Yeah.
get I've said that extremely wrong. Who's getting these massive amounts of money, pardon my language. But in a sense, I feel like having an advisor to like help them out with their finances or help them open like a 401k or manage their finances in a sense is
Yeah.
good. It's just the concept itself is a bit weird for me because we're not athletes, so like we're not collegiate athletes, so we don't have agents, but understanding it from an athlete's perspective, I guess would be different. But just thinking about someone like Odell Beckham Jr. or Steph Curry or somebody in the professional field that has agents, that makes sense. Thinking of, Darian Mensah or Mark Fletcher or anyone on pretty any collegiate team having an agent is good for the principle of it, but the concept of it, it's still hard to wrap my head around because of like all the money with NIL and just the fact that
Yeah.
college kids are being treated more like professional athletes more than ever.
Yeah, and then another thing I want to talk about with that, Cam, is that with NIL now and what college sports has turned into, this is now a business. I want to know
Yeah.
your thoughts on that, and then like with that happening, how do you see the future of this playing out?
Well, it's treated like a business now more than ever.
Yeah,
I mean, think about 10 years ago, like in 2016, there paying players was illegal.
right,
Like there was a different process that you had to go to transfer to a different school. I mean, back in 2003 when Brock Berlin transferred from Florida to Miami, I mean, that wasn't the transfer portal. He just transferred to a different
right.
school. Like, and there was no money involved. And this is kind of a funny example, but I was watching a TV show called George Lopez, and Jason McNamara was a dual sport athlete, football and baseball. And there was a there was a Kentucky school that was trying to recruit him that sent him a bunch of gifts. And mind you, this episode I believe was aired in either 2004 or 2005. So at the time, accepting gifts from a university is illegal because it's like
Right.
giving them money or giving them all this. There, granted, it was just a bunch of gifts, like there wasn't any money or cars involved, but it was still a school trying to recruit him by essentially bribery. So it was still illegal, but like you do that 20 years later and it's legal now. Like you can buy athletes cars, you could send them big bags of money. You can do all this stuff that you wouldn't have been able to do 10, 20 years ago. And I feel like that also takes away from the developmental part of college football and college athletes because when you recruit to make a player better, not to pay each player more by the day. And I feel like that's the biggest takeaway with NIL as a whole is that, you used to go to a school to get developed. That's why Nick
Right.
Saban was so fantastic because
Yep.
he recruited the best players, didn't pay him a cent. They came because they wanted to play smash mouth SEC football. Now, and I think Saban has said some words about this, and I'm in concurrence with him in terms of, NIL is out of control. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's not about who can recruit the best player, it's who can pay the player the most.
Yep.
And that's what I've really come to find out, and that's my chagrin on it. So, yeah, to put a long story short, I think it's just way out of control and it takes away from the developmental part of college football and college athletes as a whole because you want a player to go to school to get better every day, not to pay them the most.
Right. And then another perspective is that football and basketball has kind of gotten out of hand.
Yeah.
But baseball really hasn't got out of hand yet in a way. It could eventually get there, but it's not there yet. The transfer portal opens June 1st. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think baseball has really gotten out of hand. Football and basketball, like we've said before,
Yeah.
they're like top of the wire in terms of like who could pay the most, who wants to transfer where, all that stuff. But baseball and collegiate athletics as a whole, for the most part, isn't like football and basketball. I mean, you're not going to see college soccer or college hockey or college lacrosse, or like we said before, college baseball. They aren't at that level. Baseball is probably the closest sport to be at that level of football and basketball, but it hasn't reached that threshold yet because I don't think it's really had time to get to that extreme. Now, granted, when you compare that to the MLB, I mean, the MLB has no salary cap. You've got Shohei Ohtani making over 700 million, Juan Soto making 800 million. I've said like there's only a matter of time in the MLB where there's going to be the first billion-dollar player. I don't think it's ever going to get to that extent with college athletics, even as disproportionate as NIL has become. But to bring it back to the concept of college baseball, I do think that there's been a couple of instances where the money has shown like shined extra bright, but I don't think it's gotten to that level as a whole yet. Football and basketball, yes, but for baseball, hockey, lacrosse, And a good amount of other athletics, I don't think it's at that level, and I hope that it doesn't get to that level because then that's going to take away more from the developmental part of those sports as well.
I gotcha. Well, Cam, I appreciate you for your time today, and then I just want to let everyone know, stay tuned for the news tomorrow, and have a nice day, Cam.
You too, Marks. I'll see you on the next episode.
Sounds good.